Merry Christmas, season's greetings. I'm Lauren Youse, your Scarlet, Blue, and You host and the HLGU Alumni Director. Welcome to our podcast featuring HLGU alumni, events, campus news, and oh so much more. I'm coming to you from the nice and toasty Burt Studio on the HLGU campus. And I'm excited to welcome back our Christmas expert, our long-standing tradition, long-standing being like 3 years, expert Dr. Eric Turner. He's the chair of the HLGU Division of Christian Studies, assistant professor of New Testament and Greek, and director of church and denominational relations. Welcome back, Dr. Turner.
Good to be here for the third year.
Yes.
Third year.
And starting maybe a new tradition.
Maybe a new one.
This is our second year.
That's right.
That
Yeah.
Dr. Joe Garner is joining us, the HLGU director of the Registrar, also a faculty member. So glad to have you guys here. It's fun to be a faculty member the last week of school, right?
Yeah, always.
It's a great week. It's my favorite week of the year.
Just get to show
I
up
think
to
you
class
guys actually
and
enjoy it
give tests
a little
and
too much.
I do.
I get to read books during class.
I
Yeah.
know, right?
Yeah, no, I've heard your theme music when you walk into classes.
Yeah, I play the Imperial Darth Vader's Imperial March.
Perfect. And I've seen your
Yeah.
Finals Week cup.
I have a coffee mug that says "Students' Tears" on
Yeah.
it.
So I think
it's appropriate. You know.
appropriate.
you really enjoyed this last week for all the reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. We put up with their harassment like 14 weeks of the year. It's our turn.
That's right. For the
It's your
one
turn.
day. The
Okay.
one day.
So you guys are in great moods.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about Christmas
Good
stuff.
stuff.
Yep.
Before we get into the really deep theological stuff,
Yeah.
let's have a wee bit of fun first. Okay, so just say the first thing that comes to your head. All right, ready?
Okay.
Favorite holiday dessert?
Molasses crinkle cookies my wife makes.
Good choice.
Pecan pie.
Okay. Favorite holiday movie?
National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Nice.
A Christmas Story.
Oh,
Always.
that one's awful.
I love it. It's
That's
the best.
awful.
It's a good one.
It's the best. I
The
actually
scene
had
with the
I
mashed
actually had a
potatoes.
lamp.
You have the
with a leg
lamp.
lamp. I had one of my kids knocked it over and broke it one year, but I actually have a leg lamp.
You
Or
sure?
had
Your
one at one
wife may have
point.
paid
That
your
seems
kid.
appropriate.
to
It
knock
might
it
have been. It was very appropriate. Yeah.
All right. Favorite holiday song?
White Christmas, Bing Crosby.
I don't know. This is going to sound very cheesy, but I really like the first Noel. I'm not sure why, but
good
I mean it's a
song.
good song. But
I'm a drummer boy.
When I think
girl.
of Christmas song, that's the first one that always
Like
pops
the
in my
David
head.
Bowie, Frank Sinatra
Yeah.
version.
No, that
That's
one's
good.
good. That one is
fantastic.
But
good.
can we all agree that the worst Christmas song ever is I Want a
Hippopotamus?
Hippopotamus for Christmas?
We
No,
sure can.
Christmas shoes.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Christmas
that's
shoes is worse. I hate to tell you.
Does it
I
make
mean, that
you
was
cry?
bad. Don't get me wrong. but
There's
for
a
different reasons.
there is a song when we lived in Kansas City that was recorded by a local Kansas City artist called "Christmas in Kansas City," and it's worse than the Christmas shoes.
Like it's sad?
It's just not good.
It's just really bad. Okay.
And once you hear it, you can't get it out of your head.
Oh, now
Yeah.
we're all gonna have to Google.
I'm not
it.
going to sing it.
No,
You can look
don't,
it up.
Don't do
Yeah,
it.
please
It's called
don't.
"Christmas in Kansas City."
Okay.
We get a link in the show notes.
Yeah.
The
there you
rhyming,
go.
the rhyming song, the rhyme in the song is, "And the plaza lights are looking pretty." It's Christmas in Kansas City.
Oh,
You see what that? Yeah,
I
That's
do
unfortunate.
see that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Okay.
yeah, it's very interesting.
Okay. Eggnog, cider, or hot chocolate?
Eggnog.
Oh, eggnog.
Hands
Oh, it's
down.
delicious,
Yeah.
isn't
Yeah.
it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's the Christmas fun. You
Okay.
guys did really well. You answered very quickly. Thank you for that. So now we're going to move into the really fun Christmas part.
Okay.
What are we going to talk about this year?
Okay. Well, we're going to talk about a really, really old guy who lived in Egypt.
Is
Yeah,
it Jesus?
Well,
Not
he-
Jesus.
Jesus
Well,
did live in Egypt for a little bit.
He did live in Egypt temporarily.
Yeah.
Out of Egypt, I've called my son, Matthew tells us. But we're going to talk about instead a guy named Athanasius of Alexandria,
Okay.
who wrote a very famous work called On the Incarnation. And so Dr. Garner can maybe give us a little bit of history. He teaches church history.
Yeah.
And so he can give us a little bit of the rundown on the life of Athanasius, who's a very interesting character.
Yeah, he is. So Athanasius is born kind of at the end of the 200s and lives throughout most of the, a lot of the, like I think about 370, almost 380 is about when he dies. And so he is in and around Alexandria, Egypt, right? So North Africa at the time, Roman province. but one of the major centers of early Christianity. Kind of, you've got Alexandria, Jerusalem, Antioch, Constantinople, a couple cities in Greece, and then Rome are kind of like the big Christian centers at this point. And Athanasius starts off as kind of a deacon, a protege of another kind of early church father, Alexander of Alexandria. It's easy to remember. And Alexander was one of the main figures of the Council of Nicaea, kind of one of, like the very first church council. Athanasius is probably there at that point. He wasn't one of the bishops, but he's probably at least in the room. He probably saw St. Nicholas punch Arius in the face. I like to think so.
I like to think that actually happened, whether that's just
whether
embellishment.
That's right, whether it's embellishment or not. It makes a good story. And at the end of the day, historians are usually making stuff up anyway.
I believe in the Santa Claus that punches people in the face.
That's right, exactly.
Well,
heresy.
if they're upset.
No, not about it.
I mean, if you're mad enough, right?
You are justified.
If you talk about Jesus bad enough, you might get
get punched in the face.
That's right. Yeah. So Athanasius eventually, becomes a pastor, and a very controversial one. So around this time is when Emperor Constantine, possibly, don't really know for sure, but Emperor Constantine becomes a Christian.
Okay.
And so the Christianity kind of becomes legitimate during Athanasius's life, and one of the byproducts of that is you have certainly not the first time you have kind of heresy dealing with bad theology. Heresy is just a fancy word for bad theology. It's certainly not the first time that you have heresy in early Christianity. We have evidence of it even in the New Testament that people were teaching another gospel, right? Right. But now that Christianity is legitimate, quote unquote. It is dealing with heresy on much broader levels, particularly, with a particular heresy we may talk about a little bit later, Arianism. And whether it's Constantine or his immediate successors, the Roman Empire is still trying to figure out what its relationship is with Christianity. And most of the Roman emperors after Constantine, really all of them except one, are Christian to some degree. And so they're trying to figure out, who gets to decide what's orthodox and what's not. Historically, Roman emperors were also essentially like religious experts. They were priests in a lot of ways. And so Athanasius is coming up at a time where he is defending orthodoxy. He's defending true biblical belief, particularly regarding the nature of who Jesus is. Right, so that's really the big debate of the time, kind of like even today. Who is Jesus? The questions and the critiques are a little different, right? But at the time, the big question was, who is Jesus? And Athanasius is insisting on not only the full divinity of Jesus, but the full humanity of Jesus. A lot of the debates we have today revolve around, is Jesus really God? The debates in his day were more along the lines of, was Jesus really a human? In the same sense that we're a human, and there's a lot of reasons for that. So Athanasius basically consistently preaches the gospel. He consistently preaches both the full divinity and full humanity of Jesus, and therefore gets into a lot of trouble because the Arian heresy gains a fairly dominant position in this era of the Roman Empire and in a lot of Christian churches. But Athanasius is not willing to water down the gospel. He's not willing to water down the truth of the Bible. He ends up getting exiled from the Roman Empire about 7 times all total. He'll come in, he'll preach, he'll do refutations and write letters and get into theology debates with kind of more politically connected heretical bishops and pastors, and then he'll get booted into the desert. He'll be in the desert for 5 or 6 years. Something will change around. He's allowed to come back in, does the same thing, gets booted again. It kind of keeps going back and forth. And so he's known as being very pugnacious. And when you read his writings, so there's On the Incarnation, which is a lot more pastoral, but there's another work, Contra Hereticus, so against the heresies, where it's much more kind of pugnacious almost, kind of like picking a fight in writing, essentially. So all that to say, essentially, Athanasius is a pastor, a theologian in the early church, mostly around the 300s, who primarily teaches and preaches and writes concerning the nature of who Jesus is. Okay. And that's essentially what On the Incarnation is about, is defending biblical Christianity, the biblical understanding that, yes, Jesus is fully God, but what Athanasius kind of hones in on is that Jesus is also fully human.
Yeah. And I think one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this today is C.S. Lewis in one of the publications of On the Incarnation, one of the most famous ones. C.S. Lewis writes the introduction to it.
Oh, nice.
It's actually, did you know it's published by an Eastern Orthodox press?
No, I did not know
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
That's
So
interesting.
It's probably the only kind of Eastern Orthodox book that C.S. Lewis is
Yeah,
in,
would be
but-
allowed to.
Right,
be
yeah,
allowed to do. But in true, as only C.S. Lewis can do, I mean, he makes a very simplistic argument, which I think is good for us to hear today, and is that we're very good at reading theology sort of through a modern lens, and we read a lot of these more up-to-date writers, and Lewis will say he'll say in his own words, that's topsy-turvy. He used that word, it's topsy-turvy.
Yeah.
In other words, what we should be doing is reading 4th century Egyptian
The old
Yeah.
stuff.
bishops, and we have them available to this. Are they easy to read? No, they're not.
And Athanasius is one of the easier ones.
He's one of the easier ones,
but still
it's
not,
easy.
It's not your
But-
Jesus storybook Bible.
No,
I love the Jesus story.
it's not
Bible.
Plato. His son was reading Plato today outside the HLGU cafeteria, and I said, "Do you understand what you're reading?" He says, "Sort of." Which that's the right answer.
that's the- yeah, that's
If
pretty-
you're reading Plato, that's the right answer. You're like, I think I know what he said here.
Yeah.
But Athanasius is not. He's significant, but he's not as hard to understand as someone like Plato or others. So I think it's good for us to take Lewis's advice, and as we meditate on this time of year, the birth of Christ, we sometimes get the question as theologians, well, why Jesus born as a baby?
Right?
Why not just be born? Why not just incarnate himself as a fully grown human man for a couple of years and then go to the cross?
Right. Yeah.
And so Athanasius is going to build an argument that, and I think one of his most powerful arguments in the book is that our transformation as human beings to participate in the divine someday, right? To be joined with this divine eternal life, it's dependent upon the humanity of Christ and Christ's victory over death.
Yeah.
Extended to all who believe in him. And so, yes, Jesus, like Hebrews said, had to be made like us in every way, yet without sin.
Yeah.
And so I think capturing the purpose of the incarnation, and as we worship at Christmas, thinking about, O come, Emmanuel, God with us in the form of a helpless babe. Now, no crying did he make? No, I don't think so.
Sure. Yeah.
But, that's a nice line in a Christmas song, but probably not orthodox. He's fully human in every way. Babies cry when they're hungry.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Not because they're sinning.
Right.
Right.
So I don't think that's the case. But I think it's critical for us to think at Christmas about why the humanity, yes, divinity, but also why the humanity of Jesus. And so as I've reading on the Incarnation again, I don't know how many times I've read it now, multiple times, too many to count, but and thinking about we often talk about Easter. We talk about what we call the passive obedience of Christ. Right? He willingly submitted himself by becoming obedient until death, even death by means of a cross. But we don't think about what the humanity of Jesus portends for us as humans. And here's where we can capture something incredibly significant at Christmas. And it's that Jesus, born a baby, lived a perfect life, the active obedience of Christ for us. That he fulfilled the law perfectly on our behalf so that his active obedience as a human being is imputed to us. His righteousness is given to us.
Yeah.
Right? And so that says something hopeful at Christmas about our humanity and what we're headed towards. We're not headed towards an eternal life that's ethereal and like sort of just only spiritual.
Right.
Right.
We're headed to an eternal life where this stuff is a part of it. And that's controversial in Athanasius's day because they're
that's what he's
like,
pushing up
the
against.
flesh is bad, the spirit is good.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the, how can God redeem this sinful stuff we live in? And the people of Athanasius' day, like, well, he can't, he doesn't, right? We're just spiritual, right? Gnosticism, other things that crop up during this time. So I think it's critical for us to understand, he is defending against heresy, but he's doing it for the purpose of explaining something fundamental about what it means to be a Christian. It's that we are joined to the life of Christ with the hope that he's going to raise our body incorruptible someday. The fact that he has a physical body means we are going to one day have a physical body for all eternity that's going to be like his. And the incarnation echoes that for us as we go along.
Okay.
And I think that's critical we understand that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's where I think even for us today, you know, some people struggle with, the fact that Jesus is God, that in their minds that makes this kind of unmeasurable gulf between them and Christ. That's something that can't be bridged. But that's the whole point of the incarnation, is the whole point of Jesus taking on human flesh is so that God and man would be restored. That's actually one of the big themes on the incarnation, is that restoration, right? So for Athanasius, the problem of sin is not, you're going to go to hell. That's true. But the problem is the disconnect of communion with God, being outside of his presence for eternity. As Genesis puts it, no longer walking with God in the cool of the day, right? And so it's actually, it's because of the incarnation, because he took on that which he would save, right? He takes on that full humanity, that's what makes the defeat of death true, and really it's what makes it applicable,
right,
to his church, right?
Which is why he begins the book with creation and the fall.
Right, that's exactly right.
He starts, when you read on the incarnation, he's beginning this inception of like, okay, let's talk about creation, let's talk about the fall, and you're like, wait, I thought we were talking about the incarnation.
But he's like, we need to go back.
But then what he gets to is that the theological significance of that is that God, in his humility, willingly enters the human condition in order to save,
right? To be tempted as we are,
and to bring us
feel
back,
as we do.
To bring us back, like Dr. Garner so well said, to walking with him in the cool of the day. Back to this, what we were originally intended to be as the pinnacle of his creation.
That's right. And that's why the biblical themes of, Jesus being the new Adam, Jesus being
better, right?
That's right, new and better Adam,
Yeah.
Jesus being the new Israel, Jesus, all of these things like that, those don't communicate everything. They're shallow and hollow if Jesus was only, that's not Arianism, but if Jesus was only like a spiritual mirage, like if his flesh wasn't really real, like other early church heresies, they thought,
a different kind of
it was
flesh.
a different kind of flesh, like a celestial flesh, like he was like half angel, or it was just like a meat puppet, or all these different sorts of like the ancient world, and it's not just because ancients were dunderheads, like in a lot of ways they're in a lot of ways a little more educated than we are, but we have the same issues. We just wrap our minds around things differently. It's they couldn't wrap their minds around this fully God and fully man.
It's hard.
It's two contradictory ideas. We do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
That's usually most people want either kind of the buddy philosopher Jesus that has no divinity attached to them, or they want the kind of, now this is not a knock against stained glass windows. I love stained glass windows, but I call it the stained glass window Jesus, where it's this kind of disconnected, kind of artistic, kind of what I, spiritual, what I feel sort of thing. And Jesus doesn't, have, fleshiness.
Right.
Jesus
doesn't have a personality,
that's right.
doesn't struggle.
Well, even more than that, like
he's transcendent.
He's so transcendent that I can't relate.
Right.
Or I'm not able to relate.
He doesn't understand.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. And so it's a both and, not an either or.
No, it's hard.
Well, in Athanasius, what he's arguing is like only through the incarnation can God enter our condition. Only the divine joined with humanity can overcome the corruption that humanity is trapped in. There's no other way to do it. And so God so chooses to humble himself, as Philippians says, to enter into our condition. And I love, like we said in Hebrews, like he's able to come to the aid of those who are tempted. I love the Greek word there. It's the word, he says later, like in Hebrews, he says, he doesn't come to the help of angels. And the word there in the Greek is he doesn't, like it's taking somebody by the hand, which is a picture of intimacy. It's a picture of fellowship.
Brotherhood.
He doesn't extend his hand to angels, but he extends his hand to the aid of us because he was made like us.
Yeah.
And he can sympathize with our weaknesses and extend his hand and bring us to himself.
Nice.
Which is incredible. And that's what Athanasius and like Dr. Garner's right. He's saying like these guys weren't dunderheads. They're not just out in the desert like, sitting in a hut kind of meditating. Yeah. I mean, they might be a little bit.
They might be.
Yeah. Athanasius did a little bit. But he's also, it's a both and. Again, it's a both and.
These guys are deep thinkers. They probably thought more, honestly, about these realities than we do because we're so distracted in our Christmassy sort of traditions and eggnog, which is great. But Athanasius is not sitting around the fire drinking eggnog.
That's right.
He's thinking deeply about the incarnation. So I think it's good for us at Christmas to think about and read, pick up on the incarnation. You can get it free online.
Okay. Is it a very big book?
No, it's not long at all.
Or even better, register for History of Christianity in the spring.
Hey.
And
with
we'll be
Dr.
reading
Joe
it
Garner.
Well done. Well done.
And we'll actually be reading that in class. That'll be one of our primary
And you can
source
take a test.
readings. That's right. You could be tested on it. And I'll
You can
ask
audit the
awkward
class,
questions.
right?
Yeah, you can audit it.
You don't have to pay the full amount.
Yeah, but if you'd like to pay the full tuition, we'd be more than happy to.
Even better.
Yeah, audit the class. It'll be fun.
Done.
Yeah, we do. But we do. We read it in History of Christianity. It's one of our primary source readings. Read the whole thing. And it's, I mean, the volume I have, it's maybe like 90 pages,
Oh, it's a
110.
little thing.
Yeah, it's not.
There's not much to it.
You can read it in one sitting if you really sat down and just focused and honed in on it. But the version with C.S. Lewis introduction
it's
is
worth it. Because you can get it for free. I mean, you get an older translation for free online, but the version with C.S. Lewis's foreword is worth the $8, $9 for the book.
I'd never heard of this book.
Yeah,
I read a lot. This has not come up.
You should read this. Yeah, absolutely. It's worth a read at Christmas, and just as a reminder again of our what it means to be a human.
Yeah, and the significance of that.
We don't think about that as much at Christmas as maybe we ought to. We think about resurrection life at Easter, but we don't think about what the incarnation means for us to be human beings.
Yeah, because I think that's something too that's like, particularly when I'm teaching theology, one of the things I try to remind students is that for most of the history of Christianity, heresies come up when you try to overcorrect from one ditch and end up falling into the other ditch, And so sometimes with Christmas, the pushback is often, and there's a lot of legitimacy to this pushback. I think you would agree with it too. Kind of the secularization, the over commercialization. Use the way too many Coca-Cola polar bear commercials.
Too much Mariah Carey.
Yeah, way too much Mariah. Way too much Mariah Carey for sure. And yes, all that's true. However, neither is Christmas this completely sit in a dark closet in your basement and meditate, purely on, the Christmas story. It's Christmas is an incarnational holiday. It's meant to be lived and celebrated in person with your church family, with your own family, with your kids, with your spouse, with your parents, it's not an accident. It's not a weird kind of what's the word? It's not just kind of a weird abnormality of culture that at Christmas we gather together as families. Like that's a very Christian thing to do. We are incarnating, with our family to remember Christ. We are present. We are infleshed, together. And, I think that's important.
I don't know about you. I miss I don't know if Manuel does this, but I miss the midnight services.
Yeah, we don't do it at midnight. I think Pastor Anthony likes to sleep too much.
Sure,
that's
fine.
But we have a Christmas Eve service.
Yeah,
at
but
Emmanuel.
I love those.
I love a late one.
Those late,
That's right.
late night ones where you come like
it just feels magical.
It just
feels
different.
And that's those of us in particularly in the Baptist tradition. Those are the kind of things we often lose is that liturgy, right?
Liturgy.
Like liturgy is very, again, the horse isn't dead, so we'll keep beating it. Liturgy is very incarnational, right? It's taking this kind of, big brain, big picture sort of theology and making it real and substantive. It's etching it into the calendar. Like we do these things on these dates. And we do these things, and like these Christmas traditions, they can be hokey and they can be kind of weird, and my kids make fun of me all the time for the things that, I insist we've got to do during these things.
Do you do Advent?
But yeah.
Advent.
And like for us, like Christmas ends at Epiphany, and it doesn't start till after Thanksgiving.
So you don't take your tree down until
No, I don't take the tree down until Epiphany. Mm-hmm.
You know what Epiphany is?
January 6th.
Yeah, it's usually a certain.
Yeah.
It's like the first or second Sunday. It's so
I was
many
wrong.
weeks after.
That's why we do a fake Christmas
I
tree
can never
now. That's why
remember
we
the
do a
date.
fake Christmas tree.
Yeah,
'Cause if
'cause
I
you
do
just
a
leave it
real
out.
Christmas tree and I try to leave it up to
It'll be
Epiphany,
dead by the
my
second
house
week
may
of
go
January.
It may
away.
not make it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Flames.
But I think the good thing about Christmas traditions, even the ones that don't have a picture of baby Jesus on it, right? Like the good thing of Christmas traditions, whether it's eggnog, whether it's watching getting together and watching a funny
Right.
Christmas movie, is we are incarnating. We are present. We're together. And you can take it overboard just like anything else, but neither is Christmas, I think, meant to be like a solo monk kind of holiday either.
So my brother-in-law is still trying to get me. He's Serbian Orthodox.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so for Epiphany, do you know what Serbian Orthodoxes do during
No.
Epiphany?
No.
So they go out to the local lake.
Sure.
Oh, no.
And they dip 3 times in the lake.
Well done. Yeah.
That sounds awful.
And so he goes out in his swim trunks in the ice cold lake
In Serbia.
for Epiphany. He did it at Wyconda.
Right up here.
When they lived here, in Quincy,
That's awesome.
he's like, come with me.
Ah.
And I'm like,
Epic.
And
I'm
take
like,
pictures?
Edit, come with me.
Hold your
and I'm
towel?
Like, do what? I'm not getting in the water with you, man.
Yeah.
That sounds terrible.
Right, but that's their tradition.
Yeah.
And it seems mean to have to do it 3 times because, like,
To celebrate. Well, Trinity.
first time you don't really know what you're doing.
Right.
Then you're like, I know what I'm doing.
I know what I'm doing.
It's gonna hurt.
It's like a polar plunge tradition.
Over and
It
over
is.
again.
It is, yeah.
But
All that to say, I think one of the important things of the incarnation is that we're not just, we're not brains on sticks. We're not souls on sticks.
Yep.
We have a body. We're in place and time. We have a family.
Yeah.
We need to incarnate
absolutely.
with our traditions.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
All right. Does that wrap us up?
Yeah, unless you have any questions.
No,
You want
no.
Any more fun, quick questions?
I'll
have
let
to
you
throw
know
at
a
us?
year from now how I
Okay.
feel about this book.
Read it. Yeah.
I
Let
have a
us
year.
know.
Take it slow the first time, and then if
Okay.
you read it like every Christmas, then you can you can pick
If
it
I
up.
look
Then
it
you
up
start
like
picking it up.
on Audible or something, does some Egyptian person read it to me? That would be
That's
fun.
a good
I
question.
don't know. I haven't.
Or C.S. Lewis, that would be
my
great.
guess is that it's Audible, just because it's public domain,
Yeah.
and
So I bet it's out there.
Yeah.
But it's probably out there.
I love listening.
You could get
especially
you
when
could
it's
get
kind
Mario
of deep.
to read it to you.
There you go.
Yeah,
We have
Mario.
an Egyptian on campus. We're doing campus ministry. He could read you on the incarnation.
We should have him do that for our students.
I mean,
He should read it to your class.
That's true. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. It could.
Man,
That'd
I'm
be
gonna have to
interesting.
audit this class.
Yeah.
There you go.
You should. I'll save you a seat.
Oh, thank you.
How's that
I
sound?
like the front.
He can
Put
do
me
that.
right
He
in
can do
front.
that as the registrar. He can.
That's
Oh, he
right.
can?
That's right.
Around.
I'll just
He
set this
literally can
aside.
save you a seat.
Right. Right.
I love it.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you guys
Yep.
so much for joining us.
to be here.
These are great things that you can discuss with your family and friends
Absolutely.
over the next few weeks.
Yeah.
I think Christmas is like
20
3 weeks from
21
today.
days.
Very,
maybe?
very close. Yeah.
Crazy.
21 days.
So yeah, some great stuff to discuss while you're eating turkey and ham and drinking
Fried
eggnog.
turkey specifically. But
Oh, well there you
Oh,
go.
there you go.
Thawed.
All right.
Well,
and
yes, thought.
thawed fried. Get the proper order.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you for listening. We want to remind you that as you're making your plans for end of year gifts, to please keep Hannibal LaGrange in your thoughts. Any size gift makes a difference here on campus. You can do scholarships for our wonderful students. You can just pay to our annual fund and help keep the lights on and keep people like us working here.
That's right.
Yeah.
And,
That would be nice.
And just to propel our mission.
Scholarship students to take history of Christianity in the spring.
Absolutely.
And Greek. Greek. Might as well do the Greek too.
8 a.m.
8 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Greek
next
2.
semester.
8 a.m.
8 a.m.
That
It's
seems
more
so
holy.
mean.
It's more holy to study Greek at 8 a.m. The brain is less cluttered.
That's right.
Okay.
So-
Well, that sounds good.
Okay.
Well, we pray that you and your family have a happy, healthy, safe Christmas and a very prosperous new year. Thank you so much for listening to the Scarlet, Blue, and You podcast. Remember, keep a song in your heart, preferably the HLGU alma mater, and Hannibal LaGrange in your mind. We'll be back in 2025.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.